Jake had always been the laid-back type. A hard worker, dependable, the kind of guy who remembered anniversaries and kept the house clean even if no one asked him to. He loved Elena, maybe a little too much. Ever since they'd moved in together 2 years ago, he tried to make things as easy and happy as possible. He cooked, he walked the dog, he even went to brunch with her friends without complaining. She was fiery, full of life, a little unpredictable, but that's what he loved about her. Lately, though, something felt off. It wasn't anything he could put his finger on. Just little things. She'd been more distant, giggling at her phone late at night, turning it over quickly when he walked by. Her affection had become inconsistent. Some nights she clung to him like old times, and others, she was cold and irritable. But every time he started to overthink it, he reminded himself, she's probably just stressed. Work's been crazy. Don't be that guy. Then came Friday. Babe, Elena said, breezing into the kitchen with curls bouncing and a tight black dress that made Jake's eyes widen. I'm going out tonight. The girls from the office are dragging me to some club. Total, wild ladies' night thing. Jake smirked. You sure you'll survive it? Last time you had 2 margaritas and tried to pet a police horse. She laughed. That horse loved me. But yeah, I'll behave. Probably. Jake stood up and wrapped his arms around her. Have fun, alright? Text me if you need anything. She gave him a quick peck on the lips, then turned to grab her purse. You're the best, Jake. Love you. And just like that, she was out the door. Jake sat back down with his half-eaten pizza and a movie he wasn't really watching. As the hours ticked by, he scrolled through Reddit, laughed at dumb memes, and waited for a "heading home soon" text that never came. By midnight, he was in bed, alone, staring at the ceiling with a growing sense of unease. Maybe he was overthinking again. Maybe it really was just a harmless girls' night out. He closed his eyes and told himself to sleep. But something about the silence felt heavy. Like a storm was about to hit, and he was the only one who hadn't checked the weather. The club was already pulsing with bass and bodies by the time Elena stepped inside. Colored lights danced across the walls, and a haze of perfume, sweat, and vodka lingered in the air. She looked incredible, tight black dress, red lipstick, hoop earrings that caught the light every time she tossed her head. She didn't come here for the drinks or even the dancing. She came for the escape. She spotted her coworkers near the bar, already 2 cocktails in and laughing loudly. Elena joined in, ordering a round of tequila shots and pretending everything in her life was perfect. She even fake laughed at Monica's joke about their boss's bad breath. But in truth, her eyes kept scanning the room, until she saw them. Devon and Tyrell. They stood near the back wall, tall, smooth, confident. Both of them dressed sharp, Devon in a dark green button-up that hugged his broad chest, and Tyrell in a black tee that clung to his arms. She'd met them briefly last weekend when she and her friends had come here on a whim. They danced. She flirted. Nothing happened, yet. But tonight, it felt different. She excused herself from her group and made her way over. Well, Devon said with a grin, giving her a once-over. Didn't expect to see you here again so soon. Neither did I, Elena replied, her voice flirty and just a little slurred from the tequila. But I guess fate has good taste. Tyrell chuckled. Or maybe you just missed us. She shrugged, twirling a strand of hair around her finger. Maybe I did. The 3 of them moved toward a quieter spot near the back of the club. The music was still thumping, but they could actually hear each other talk now, sort of. Devon leaned in close to speak into her ear, his breath warm on her skin. Tyrell kept brushing her arm, subtly, like testing the boundaries. Elena didn't stop him. So where's your man tonight? Tyrell asked, tone casual, but his smirk said otherwise. At home, Elena replied, not meeting his eyes. Probably watching sports or something boring. Oof, Devon grinned. Let's make sure you have more fun than he is. One more drink turned into 3. The distance between them disappeared. Elena danced, close, slow, hips swaying between both men like she was caught in the gravity of 2 moons. She laughed louder, touched more freely, the club lights bouncing off her bare shoulders like she was the star of the night. In the back of her mind, Jake existed. But he was fading, drowning under shots of tequila, bass-heavy music, and the thrill of being wanted. Really wanted. By midnight, her phone was in her purse and forgotten. Devon had his arm around her waist. Tyrell whispered something in her ear that made her bite her lip and laugh. And then she said the words that sealed it all. "You guys got a place nearby?" They both looked at each other, then back at her. "Yeah," Devon said. 5 minutes from here. "Let's go." Elena didn't hesitate. She didn't think. She just nodded and followed them out into the humid night. Jake, still at home, was turning over in bed, eyes open, stomach tight with worry. But Elena wasn't thinking about him. Not tonight. The hotel was nothing special. Standard layout, low lighting, the kind of place people passed through without remembering. Devon paid at the front desk while Elena leaned against the wall, trying to steady herself. The room key was warm in her hand, but her thoughts were scattered, floating somewhere between the shots she'd taken and the choices she hadn't yet faced. They took the elevator in silence, the kind that buzzed with anticipation and recklessness. The hallway was quiet except for the soft hum of vending machines. When the door finally opened, she stepped in first, breathing faster than she realized. The room smelled faintly of air freshener and stale linens. And then, things just happened. There weren't any grand declarations. No, "Are you sure?" moments. Just Devon moving closer, Tyrell behind her, and that unmistakable feeling that a line was about to be crossed, and she wasn't going to stop it. Laughter faded. Music from the club was still echoing in her mind. The energy shifted. Her jacket landed on the chair. The room's quiet swallowed the sound of the outside world. It was messy. Disjointed. She let herself get swept up in the chaos, fueled by impulse, alcohol, and the illusion of control. Every time she thought maybe I shouldn't, it was drowned out by the thrill of but I want to. Time didn't make sense. Minutes, hours, blended together like the night itself. Somewhere along the way, the buzz wore off. The adrenaline started to settle. What was once exciting began to feel heavy. By the time the clock glowed 2:45 a.m., Elena sat on the edge of the bed, staring blankly at the floor. Devon was in the bathroom. Tyrell scrolled through his phone, half-lidded, content. Everything around her suddenly felt too quiet. Too still. Too real. She stood up slowly, grabbing her things and muttering, "I should go." Tyrell offered a half-smile. "We'll drive." The ride home was quiet. No music. Just the low hum of the engine and the occasional muffled laugh from the front seat. Elena rested her head against the window, eyes unfocused. Guilt hadn't hit yet, but something colder had crept in. A weight she didn't recognize but knew she'd carry for a long time. At 3:05 a.m., they turned onto her street. Jake Street. As the car rolled to a stop in the driveway, Elena forced a laugh at something Devon said, fake, brittle, hollow. The porch light was off, but behind the curtains, a shadow moved. Inside the house, Jake had woken up. Confused by the noise. Drawn to the window. And what he saw froze him in place. The woman he loved stumbling out of a car, unsteady and breathless, flanked by 2 strangers with smug looks on their faces. The pit in his stomach turned to stone. He didn't need to ask questions. He didn't need to hear excuses. He already knew. Jake stood frozen behind the front door, heart pounding like a war drum in his chest. He didn't know what he expected when he looked out that window, but it sure as hell wasn't this. Elena. Laughing, stumbling, barefoot, clutching her heels like trophies of a night she shouldn't have had. Devon and Tyrell were right behind her, talking loudly, cracking jokes like they didn't have a care in the world. Like this wasn't someone else's home. Someone else's life. Jake backed away from the window, his breath shallow, hands shaking as they balled into fists. The front door opened before he could even process what to do. Elena stepped in with a wide grin, practically falling into the hallway wall. "Baby," she sang, dragging the word out like a drunk karaoke note. "We brought the party." Devon chuckled as he followed her in. "Yo, nice place, man." Tyrell gave a lazy wave. "Didn't know she was married." "Wild." Jake's voice came low, but sharp. "What the hell is this?" The room fell still. Elena blinked, wobbling slightly. "Jake, relax. You're overreacting." "Overreacting?" His voice cracked with disbelief. "You show up at 3 a.m. drunk out of your mind, with them?" Devon took a step back. "Hey man, we didn't mean to start anything. We were just dropping her off." Jake turned to him with eyes that could cut steel. "Get out of my house. Now." Tyrell raised both hands like he was backing away from a bomb. All right. We're gone." The two men didn't argue. The mood had shifted fast, and even they weren't dense enough to miss it. They stepped out into the night, still smirking, still amused, leaving the door hanging open behind them. Jake closed it. Hard. The silence inside was deafening. Elena leaned against the wall, arms crossed, mascara smudged and confidence slipping fast. "You're seriously making this a thing?" Jake stared at her. "You cheated on me." She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. Her eyes darted away, like she couldn't face the words. Couldn't even lie her way out of it. "I don't even know who you are right now," Jake said, his voice cracking with pain. "I thought we were building a life. I thought we were, real." Her voice was small now. "Jake, I was drunk. It didn't mean anything. You brought them to our house, Elena." That was the last line. The one he couldn't forgive. The betrayal wasn't just the act, it was how brazenly, carelessly she dragged it home. Into the life they shared. Into his space. "Get out," Jake said, pointing toward the stairs. "Go pack a bag. You're leaving tonight." "What?" "Jake, no. I said get out." For a moment, she looked like she might argue again. But something in his face stopped her. Maybe it was the way his jaw was clenched, or the tears he was refusing to shed. She turned silently and walked upstairs. Jake stayed rooted to the floor, listening to her move around. Each creak of the floorboards was another fracture in the version of reality he thought he knew. By the time she came down with a duffel bag and puffy eyes, Jake had already opened the door again. She paused, looking at him. Hoping. Maybe expecting him to soften. He didn't. She stepped out without another word. The door closed behind her. And Jake stood there, in the quiet, in the wreckage of something that had once felt so solid, realizing that the life he'd poured himself into was gone in a single night. Jake didn't sleep that night. He sat on the couch in the dim light of the kitchen, staring at the blank TV screen while the clock ticked past 4 a.m. The silence was crushing, but at least it was honest, unlike the life he'd been living. His phone buzzed a few times. Elena. One text just said, "Please talk to me." Another said, "I made a mistake." He didn't respond. Not because he didn't have anything to say, he had too much to say. But none of it would change what had happened. By sunrise, he'd already started moving her things into boxes. The next few days were surreal. Elena tried calling. Then emailing. Then crying outside his door. But Jake had made up his mind. There was no screaming, no dramatic confrontation, just a quiet, cold distance that told her this wasn't salvageable. He filed for divorce within a week. No hesitation. No drawn-out mess. Just clean, sharp closure. Some of their friends were shocked. Others, not so much. A few pulled him aside and said they always felt something off about Elena. One of his co-workers even admitted they'd seen her flirting at a bar once and didn't want to be that guy to say anything. Jake just nodded. There was no use going backward. He didn't need revenge. He didn't even want an apology anymore. What he wanted was peace. And he found it, slowly. In the little things. In waking up without anxiety. In eating alone and not wondering who was texting her under the table. In rebuilding a life that was his, not shared with someone who saw commitment as optional. He deleted the old photos. Cancelled the anniversary dinner reservation. Changed the locks. One night, weeks later, he sat out on the back porch with a beer, looking up at the stars. The air was still. Quiet. Real. He thought about the moment Elena stumbled through the door that night, laughing with two strangers like it was all a game. He remembered how his heart broke, not with a bang, but with a sickening click, like a door closing for good. And then he smiled. Because now, the only door that mattered was the one he'd closed behind her. No more lies. No more pretending. Just Jake, and a future that, for the first time in a long time, felt wide open.